This is the SETN Podcast with Chris Goforth and Chandler Morrison, covering high school football in Chattanooga and the Southeast Tennessee area. The SETN Podcast.
Welcome in to SETN Preps. Chris Goforth, Chandler Morrison. We are back once more with a little video look on this this Tuesday afternoon. Some big stuff happened in high school football across Southeast Tennessee yesterday. So Chandler and I, we wanted to be able to get back with you today in order to kind of be able to talk about things a little bit. But first, as you know, we normally do this in a podcast form where it's audio only. SETN Preps, you can find us wherever you download your podcast from. We're on Apple Podcast, we're on Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Anchor.fm. If you want to leave us a message, you can do that through Anchor.fm. Certainly, we'd love to hear from you. You can visit our website. It's setnpreps.com. And, of course, you can find us, clearly, you know how to find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/SETNpreps. And on Twitter as well, at SETNpreps, at Sports Chandler, and at Chris Goforth1. All right, Chandler, let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Monday was a busy day for high school football across Southeast Tennessee.
It was. And by the way, Chris, I got to say, we can actually see each other now. I'm loving the Van Halen thing behind you on the wall right there. I love
that is from Van Halen, February of 93 at the UTC Arena.
That was before I was born, Chris.
Thank you for that, Chandler. Thank you for that, my friend. I was in college, and anyway, had a good time that night. Had a good time. It was a big rumor that Van Halen was going to be at the Sandbar, which is now I think it's now where the boathouse is on Amnicola Highway. But there was this whole thing that Sammy Hagar and Eddie Van Halen were going to be at the Sandbar. I really think that the Sandbar just put that rumor out there because you could not get in the Sandbar before or after that concert that night. But a good show,
Well, we got some news, no rumors, news, maybe some rumors later, but we got some news on high school football, Chris. I'm going to go real quick with this, and we'll just kind of react to this, and I want to see what you think about this. So first thing I've got to say is McCallie has at least 11 players test positive. Now, that comes out today. We're recording this on a Monday. You're going to watch this on a Tuesday, but this is the big news coming out of this. It's kind of the one that you look at and you're like, wow, that's the COVID-related news that we got. They will have to quarantine for 2 weeks for McCallie's. That's what they said they're going to do, including a game that won't be played against CCS. Now, I say that because their second week opponent, they'll play that second week game, but their first week opponent, CCS, on an unrelated news and note, it seems like it should be completely related, Chris, but it's not. They have decided they will play a region-only schedule plus Baylor.
Yeah, the official word from CCS today from their head coach and Mark Mariakis, he said we are playing one non-region game with Baylor September 4th. That's week 3, and then starting our region schedule week 5. 7 total games. So CCS will play 7 total games, and again, that is the official word from their head coach in Mark Mariakis today.
Yeah, and they've canceled games against McCallie, Whitwell. I think it's Lakeview Christian. Is that
yes.
the one they had on there?
Yes.
They will play, like you said, they'll play Baylor in week 3, September 4th, which is actually the day they would have played Whitwell. That was the original date for that one. But Chris, how do you feel about this? And that's, by the way, that's going to be the first 4 weeks they're going to have one game in 4 weeks. And
I had heard that CCS really wanted to have kids on campus, and they wanted kids in school for 2 weeks before they started playing games. So I think that is a little bit behind some of the decision making that CCS, kind of what went into that a little bit. Now, on the flip side of this, let's talk about McCallie here for a minute. 2 things about McCallie. Number one, McCallie and Baylor are a little different from the other schools in our area, even the private schools that play football, because they have boarding students. So you've got guys at McCallie that come from literally all over the country, and in some cases come from all over the globe to McCallie as boarding students. I don't know okay, if that's where it came from. Not saying that, but I'm just saying that's one of the ways that McCallie is and Baylor too are a little bit different than the other than our other schools in this area. The second thing too about this, Chandler, is this. I think what we're seeing from McCallie today or yesterday is probably something that we're all just going to kind of have to get used to. Like it or not, again, I go back to a comment that, and I think I told this to you in one of the podcasts. Bob Bowlesby, who's the the commissioner of the Big 12, back in like April or May, when this when we were all wondering what was going to happen in terms of college football, he made the comment then and said, "Look, some athletic directors, some coaches, players, fans, conference commissioners, we're all going to have to be okay with the fact that not every game is going to get played." And I think if we're going to move through this high school football season with the idea of getting in as many games as we can and crowning a state champion in December, I think what we saw today at McCallie is probably something that we're going to see. I think, how many schools here, McCallie, CCS, Whitwell, those are the three right off the top of my head that I know had their schedules affected by the news when it came out yesterday. So I really feel like that by the end of the year, probably every school in our area, or at least the majority of them, will have they're going to have the schedule affected some way, whether that's something on their team or it's something on an opponent's team. I just think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm right there with you. What that does too, and by the way, I'll talk about another one that's had a schedule change, not related to McCallie, but we'll talk about that in a second. One of the things you have to look at here is I think McCallie and CCS are kind of, McCallie was forced to kind of go ahead and have to quarantine and all this. With CCS doing what they're doing, I think it's a very smart move because you give yourself a month that if you do have football players that get it, early on, you can kind of get them to recover. And a lot of reports I hear, if you get it once you're recovered from it, you're not perfect, but you're fine. You built up kind of an immunity to it or built up a resistance to that. So the ones that have had it before are going to be better on down the line because like a McCallie, I think as you go forward toward the end of that season, other schools are going to have to worry about COVID. McCallie, maybe not so much because they've already dealt with it. One, they've seen the logistics of it behind the scenes. One, two, they built up immunity to those players that have had it. And I would say that we're going to see more than 11 players. Now, I say at least 11 players. That was the report that came out today. We don't know here in 2 weeks if we're not going to get another 12 or 13 off this team that are going to get it. So I think I think McCallie was forced into this. I think it's a smart move by CCS to get kids in school for 2 weeks. And they can afford to do that because they are a private school. So at this point, I think being a private school gives you an advantage because you can do things. And by the way, you talked about McCallie and Baylor being boarding schools. They can control a lot more of what the students do, after school. A lot of these public schools, even the private schools like CCS, Silverdale, Notre Dame, once those kids leave practice, there's no telling what they're going to do. There's no telling what they've got going on. And so when you have McCallie and Baylor, they've got a more controlled situation where they can say, all right, listen, we're actually going to quarantine y'all. Y'all are living here on campus. For the most part, most kids are living on campus at a boarding school. All right, you're going to have to stay in the dorms after practice. You're not going to be able to leave campus. You're going to have to, instead of maybe this number of people in a dorm or this number of people, in this building, we're going to close that down a little bit. They have a lot more control over it. And I think that's what's going to ultimately give Baylor and McCallie that kind of edge. I don't know how many other Division II AAA are. How many of those are actual boarding schools? Because I think that may come into effect later on. Because I'm not sure. That's just kept.
Yeah, I don't even want to speculate on that because I'm not really sure. I know Baylor and McCallie are obviously here in town, but in terms of the other teams they play, I'm sure there are others. I'm not exactly sure who though.
Yeah, and like I said, I think they're going to be able to control it more. And you're looking at a team in McCallie that is able to control those kind of things because and this is the first team that's popped up in our area that has had COVID. So imagine the teams that aren't going to be able to have that much control, how that's going to happen. Now, I'm not about to sit here and say that we shouldn't have high school football. What I'm saying is be expecting to lose a game or two for any team at any point, even if it's a crucial game, right? Even if you're going to have to forfeit that game or maybe you get that game forfeited to you, I think we're going to see, and I think this is going to be interesting, Chris. I think we're going to get news on a Thursday that, oh, this team can't play tomorrow. And it's going to be a big reaching matchup. It's going to be something big that we expect. And then we're going to turn around and, COVID is going to decide who gets the second seed in the playoff. I can totally see it happening.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, again, I think by the end of the year, probably everybody's schedule is going to be affected in this some way or the other. And that doesn't mean, as you just said, Chandler, that doesn't mean that I don't feel like they should be playing or that I don't want them to play or anything like that. I've already got the Corona Bros after me for kind of thinking positive about it. And that's, you and I, we've talked about it several times on the podcast over the course of the summer that we're going to be positive about this. We want to see it happen. We're going to continue to say and think positive that we're going to have a season. But I think realistically, in the back of your mind, you kind of know look, we've never been here before. We've never dealt with anything like this, at least not in our lifetimes. So how things are going to be handled, I don't know. How it's going to go, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, and we'll find out. We'll kind of find out how it happens
And speaking of
as we
teams,
go along.
yeah, speaking of teams that are going to have that schedule change, Boyd Buchanan also in that boat. We have 3 private schools now and a public school that have been affected by this, and now we're actually going to have 2 more, not directly affected to COVID, but we're going to have 2 more, Lookout Valley and Hickson, who are going to lose a game because Boyd Buchanan has elected to play a region-only schedule. I believe in not just football, but all their fall sports, they're going to play a region-only schedule.
Well, here's the comment. This is the official word here from Boyd Buchanan's Dean of Students, Joe Pope. Joe used to be the athletic director at Boyd Buchanan. He's now the Dean of Students. But he says Boyd Buchanan has chosen to play only district region games in contact sports this fall. So it is only in contact sports,
Gotcha.
which I'm assuming is going to be football and soccer, I guess.
Yeah, I would assume soccer, yeah.
Yeah, our goal is to protect the safety and health of our students by limiting potential exposure. We hope by doing this, our students are healthy and they're ready to play. Now, let me explain something because, when we heard this come out around college football that, the SEC was going to play a conference-only game or a conference-only schedule, a lot of people said, oh, so, the virus can't be spread during a non-conference game. Well, no, that wasn't the reason behind the SEC's decision, and it's not the reason behind Boyd Buchanan's decision. What is behind both of these decisions is you have a little more control over the testing in terms of how often players are tested, where they're tested, what it looks like, what the protocols are every day for coming to practice, what the protocols are for being able to play in a game. If you have region, when you're playing a region schedule, if you can get everybody in your region to agree to it, just like in the SEC, they're going to have every SEC team is going to have the same sort of guidelines and protocols when it comes to testing in order to be able to play on Saturday. It's the same sort of thing here with high school football. The other thing that this allows you to do is if you do have an outbreak, one thing you can do is you're going to have the ability to be able to reschedule games. If you're playing a conference-only schedule and you do have a COVID-19 situation with your team, hopefully it's going to give you an opportunity to be able to move some games around on your schedule and get some games in. And I think that's kind of what is going part of the thinking there at Boyd Buchanan is.
Yeah, Chris, I agree with you completely. I think that a lot of people are just saying, oh, the conference, but there are benefits to doing that and being able to do that, especially when you have a region-only schedule. And
It's about control. It's 100% about it's about control.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think anybody is going out here and any coach or athletic director is saying, all right, let's just do that. Like, we know we're going to have to adjust. A lot of these coaches are saying we know we're going to have to adjust. Now we're doing a region-only schedule, and, that's a big question I have. Now, going forward, Chris, we talked to a couple of coaches that have said that they prefer to have 2 bye weeks on the schedule. We've had 1 or 2 coaches tell us that. Going forward for these D2 teams who already have a tough time scheduling other opponents, we talked to them, they say they had trouble scheduling. That's why they end up with 2 bye weeks sometimes. Do you think that this region-only schedule, maybe like a region plus one opponent or like a region plus Baylor type deal, is something viable that these Division II teams can look at going forward? This could be maybe, and I'm not saying it will happen, but it could be a good test run for these Division II programs.
I don't necessarily feel like this is anything that's going to happen. I mean, it could be. I guess it could become the norm, right? I don't necessarily feel like that's the case with this. I think this is a one-time situation that everybody's trying to manage during the middle of a global pandemic, and everybody's trying to figure out how can we do this and still be able to play as many games as possible to give our kids a chance to compete. And I think if you ask most of the coaches, that's what they would say. Man, we want to compete. My guys want to play. So we're trying to massage things as best we can in order for us to be able to play. That's what they're looking at. I think that's what I don't necessarily see it being anything. To me, high school football is a 10-game regular season. And I think that's what most coaches, most private school, public school coaches, that's what they would like. If somebody's playing a 9-game season, sometimes there may be a little method to that madness. Charles Fan at Notre Dame told us he liked playing a 9-game schedule because he liked having that final week of the regular season as an additional bye week to get healthy, to be, to kind of have fresh legs going into the playoffs. I can understand that. Makes sense. But in terms of, seeing, in D2, seeing a bunch of, 5, 6, 7-game schedules going forward, I don't really necessarily think that happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat. I just thought it was a general question of, could this be something that happens? Because, I mean, I could see maybe a team or two saying, we kind of like this, or we kind of want to do maybe 1 or 2 games outside of a region, not really schedule like a 10-game full schedule. But by the way, Boyd Buchanan, they lose games against Lookout Valley in week 7, Hickson in week 5, and North Georgia, which is the homeschool team in North Georgia, week 1. I don't think we're losing any. I hate to say quality matchups, but when you have a public and private,
Boyd Buchanan was playing Tyner to open the season.
Yeah.
So that was their, that's in terms of the big games that are going to be missed because of this.
We're losing one. Yeah.
Yeah, that Boyd Buchanan Tyner game week 1, I mean, that's the one that everybody was, kind of focused on. But, you added a couple of more teams there in the area: Lookout Valley, Hickson, Whitwell, CCS, McCallie, and Boyd Buchanan. So the number right now of teams affected is at 6.
Yeah, and Chris, just to change topics a little bit and kind of end this podcast, because I think people need to kind of see where we're going and see where we're being positive in this thing. As positive as we can be, Chris, do you think, I know how we feel about this, but just for the viewers, let's let them know how we feel on this. Should high school football happen? Is there a situation that could arise that would say, you know what, we need to hold off on high school football this year? In your mind, anything at all?
I think right now, based upon what we know, again, I've said it from the beginning. I think there were a lot of kids that graduated in the spring that missed out on a large portion of their senior season. There's a lot of kids now, and I really want to talk about those kids that when they take the helmet off for the final time, whenever they're, if they miss the playoffs, or when they get put out in the playoffs, or they're fortunate enough to be able to win a state championship, they'll pull that helmet and that jersey off for the final time, and they will never have the opportunity again to be able to put that helmet back on. Those are the kids that I want to see this happen. Yes, I want us to be as careful as we can.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to see a kid get sick. I certainly don't want to see anybody die from this. And as I have said for a long time, and I don't care about what level of football we talk about, it is okay, or what sport we talk about. It's okay to want to see sports come back. It's okay to want to see football played. And it's okay to want those things and still not want someone to die. I think the numbers as they stand right now, both nationally as well as the numbers in Hamilton County, I think in that age group that high school students are in, um, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to be able to play. But again, and Bernard Childress said this in a story that Stephen Hargis had today on the timesfreepress.com about, look, coaches are going to have to be diligent in reminding players, you know what you're doing when you're away from school, when you're away from practice. Stay away from large groups. Jason Fitzgerald, we talked to him. Folks are going to be able to hear that podcast coming up Friday.
Great segue.
Yeah, Jason Fitzgerald talked about the place that all the kids go in Meigs County in Decatur, and they all gather around. And he's like, guys, you can't be doing that. And that's something that I think more and more coaches are going to be preaching. And as another coach told us, look, they like the fact that they know where their guys are now after school. They can control some of it after school because they're going to be at football practice. And on Fridays when school lets out, they're going to keep them there, and they'll have them at school and in the field house, and they're going to know where these guys are, so they can try to police things a little bit, or as best as they're able to. So
and that's not just a football thing either. That's a coach caring about people, coach caring about
oh
players
sure,
thing too. They know that, okay, at least from 8 a.m. in the morning till we get out of practice in the evening, I know where they're at. I know that they're not, I know that they're spacing themselves out. I know that they're not getting close together and contracting that, or at least putting themselves in a situation where it's more likely to happen.
yeah. Because the other thing you have to realize about this is you can get the coronavirus a number of different ways, we think, right? It's not spread just through the playing of football. It can be, you can pick up the coronavirus. Chandler, you may be able to, you might pick it up somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to happen on the football field.
Yep.
So again, I think anytime now we leave our house, I think you put yourself at a little bit of risk. But we've been doing that for years, right? I mean, you leave your house, you get in the car, you drive a lot, you know this. You put yourself at risk. So there's a little bit of risk that's involved with all of us. But yes, I do. I've tried to maintain a positivity through all of this. I think it's important. We've talked with coaches here about how much some of their kids need football, that football is what keeps them going. It's what keeps them going to class. It's what's keeping some of them in school. It's giving them a purpose and something to work forward or work towards. We talked to Chris Brown that in a podcast that was released on Monday over at Red Bank. We talked to Damon Floyd at Bradley Central. That podcast is going to be released Wednesday. I would encourage you, if you're a recruiting guy, go listen to both of those podcasts, because you're going to hear about some of the best high school football players in our area, the guys that are going to be playing on Saturday are at Red Bank and at Bradley. And I think both of those coaches, they understand what's happening. They understand what's at stake. And both of those coaches feel confident in being able to play and get this season going. But I think we all know we got to be a little bit, things are going to be different this year. Some things are going to be moved around. So it's going to be unlike anything I think any of us have ever had to deal with or go through before.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a unique situation, and I think as people that have been in the media that have watched football forever, I played football. I'm just excited to see it back. And I know I say this all the time. I'm excited to see football back, because when football is back, it gives us a sense of normalcy. Even if the schedule is weird, even if we're having to deal with all this stuff, and I think high school football should happen no matter what. Barring a catastrophic, just huge spike where no one's allowed to get out of the house, I think football should happen and should continue to happen. And I think we kind of have to look at this, and TSAA has to say, listen, we know that we're going to get coronavirus cases. We know that COVID cases are going to happen. Let's not shut down football. Let's not try to, panic or whatever. I think that's the most important thing here, is not to panic, because there are a lot of things out of our control, and we knew that. We knew we weren't going to be in a bubble, Chris. We knew that, with high school football. We just don't have the resources to do that with high school football. Really, no one does except for maybe the Division II AAA teams. But, there can't be panic. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's not going to be panic. I think there's going to be a sense of let's just keep going. Let's just keep trucking. And I think that by the time we get toward the end of the season, everything's going to kind of look normal toward the end of the season. I think football will help us as a society to get back to normal.
Chandler, what did you spend your summer doing? One of the things that you did this summer that involved athletics. I would call you and Chandler, what are you doing? Man, I'm on my way to umpire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell you because I got a whole bunch of friends who have kids that are playing travel ball. I've got friends who have kids who are playing AAU ball. I've got friends who have kids certainly down in the Atlanta area that have participated in 7-on-7 camps and activities. All of these things have been going on. So the AAU gyms are packed. The ball fields are packed on the weekends. A lot of people are wearing masks, but I'm not going to tell you people are necessarily social distancing. A lot of people, again, they're wearing masks, and I have no problem wearing a mask. Those things are happening, and we're not hearing about a huge outbreak of COVID-19 in the AAU ranks or on Summer League Baseball or even at some of these camps that were happening. I know there was one or two that happened down, some showcase camps that happened down in the Atlanta area that, they went ahead with it. So, and I haven't heard anything about any kind of, COVID-19 cases or anything being traced back to those camps. So I say all that to say sports has continued. People are still gathering to watch. And I think we're going to be able to gather and watch on August the 21st when the season kicks off. I don't know that I can say it yet, but we'll be back on the CW with another year of televised games in the Chattanooga area. We've got a good one to kick off the season. So I don't know that I'm able to say what it is yet.
You can't break the news on your own news.
I don't think I can do that yet, but I don't know, contracts get involved and stuff can change, and I'd look like a fool if I'm wrong, a bigger fool
and
if
Chris,
I'm wrong.
I'll tell you this, the most normal I have felt this summer, and I know this is going to be the case for a lot of them, and I talk, I do high school youth at my church also, and I deal with a lot of the high school students, and a lot of them are athletes. The most normal they have felt is when they're out on the ball field. The most normal I have felt through this whole COVID thing has been when I've been out on the ball field. I get that umpire mask on, I get the pads on. The pads never cover where everything that needs to be covered, but I get hit with ball. Anyways, that's nothing. but the most normal I have felt is when I get behind the hind catcher, that first pitch comes in, you settle in, and all of a sudden, boom. It's just like the whole world evaporates, and sports does that. Even on Friday nights. I remember Friday nights when that would happen, where the whole world just evaporated. I didn't see anybody out in the stands. I didn't see anybody outside those lines except for the coach, and that was it. Like, that's all my focus on. I know it's how a lot of kids are going to see it, but that's when I felt the most normal. Chris, I know that we want to make this short. We hope we got all our points across that we need to get across. I want to remind you, as we said earlier, we had Chris Brown yesterday. That was Monday, the Red Bank head coach. We've got Damon Floyd on Wednesday, Bradley Central. On Friday, you can hear Jason Fitzgerald, Meigs County. They had the reigning runner-ups from last year in Class 2A. We had a pretty good conversation with him. I love that. And then we also, next Monday, we will have Dwayne Tabor for Bledsoe County. So going into the season, we may even have a few more. We don't know yet. We're still working on it. But going into the season, we're going to give you as much coach talk as we can. And then next week, we will be doing our preview show before week one. And Chris, I cannot wait for that. It's been so long. It feels like so long since we've done any kind of preview, any kind of review. But just to remind you, you can find this podcast just about anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find this video and also our schedule episode, our schedule special episode. You can find that here on Facebook. You can find it on IGTV, which is on Instagram. And you can also find it on YouTube as well. Go subscribe on YouTube. Go follow us on Instagram and like our page on Facebook, and give our Chattanooga area high school football group page a look as well as you go forward. And also, Chris, I can't tell you how many times I want to hear from these fans. Go to anchor.fm, Give us a voice message. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think about your team. Tell us what you think about the schedules. Tell it all, brother. Tell it all, okay? Let's hear from you.
That's your opportunity. So Anchor.fm, you can leave us your thoughts on the COVID situation, or any thoughts you have leading up to the start of the high school football season, and we'll play those back on our SETN Preps podcast that is again available wherever you download your podcast from. So Chandler, enjoyed it as always. We'll again, we got another podcast coming out tomorrow. We'll be visiting with Damon Floyd, head coach at Bradley Central. He's got a bunch of guys that will get an opportunity to go play in college as well. So looking forward to that coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, and Chris, I just want to say 4 podcasts in a week, even though it's on video. You can't tell the high school football fans we don't love them. I mean, seriously.
No, I mean we've got the content this week. Thankfully, there's a lot going on, so we got a lot to talk about. And if more news were to break here over the course of this week, who knows, Chandler? We may be doing this again. So I hope not. I hope not, but I'm prepared.
All right.
This is the SETN Podcast with Chris Goforth and Chandler Morrison, covering high school football in Chattanooga and the Southeast Tennessee area. The SETN Podcast.